I drove a Cadillac. Well, Elvis, he had it all. They say he was the king.
Well, welcome again into the Wednesday edition of 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL's Strategies for Living. And it is not only the Hump Day Wednesday edition, it is the birthday. It is the anniversary edition. So let me do my thing. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, Elvis is in the building.
Happy birthday.
It sounds like he left a long time ago.
Happy birthday, dear Carla. Happy birthday to you.
It's my birthday.
right.
It's my birthday. Thank you very much.
You're welcome and happy anniversary to you.
Well, thank you very much.
I won't belabor this, but it's Ruben's anniversary.
Well, I didn't know that. How about that?
Yeah.
Three years we've been married.
I will forever remember that, Ruben.
Yeah, it's not hard to forget now.
And it's Hunter Thompson's birthday today.
Yeah, well, I found that out.
I'm not. Who's Hunter Thompson?
Guy from
Hunter
Fear
is-
and Loathing in Las Vegas, the
yeah,
crazy
yeah.
guy.
The
Yeah.
crazy guy that y'all told me about him before.
Yeah, we've talked about him before.
I'd kind of rather think of myself as having Nelson Mandela's birthday.
There you
There we
go.
go.
There
Yeah.
you go. Welcome, folks. Welcome into Strategies for Living, and thank you for joining us, along with PLPC Carla McCormick, the ace of the airways, our ace producer, Ruben Wright. I'm marriage and family therapist, David McMillan, and we are presented this evening and every evening by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. Been helping individuals and families now for 60 years. We're brought to you by Milestones Counseling Center. We're brought to you by Jerry Anderson, State Farm Insurance. We're brought to you by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. Now, you may ask, what in the world? How could we? What topic could we possibly pick for Carla's birthday, for Ruben's anniversary? Well, you know what? We got a good one. We are going to come back, and we're going to talk about emotional BS.
Can't say the real word.
No, but it is the title of the book. And we'll talk about the hidden plague that destroys relationship. We're going to have fun with this today here on Strategies, Emotional BS, when we come back. If we're talking addiction prevention, education, and treatment in Shreveport-Bossier for 60 years, we're talking about CADA. Let's talk about addiction. Let's talk about treatment. Let's talk about getting your life back. The Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, CADA, has been helping individuals and families in Shreveport and Bossier City for 60 years now. CADA provides intensive residential treatment as well as outpatient services too. CADA treats women with children, pregnant women, adolescents, veterans. CADA has helped thousands and thousands of people in North Louisiana from just about every race and ethnic background, every socioeconomic level, across every class line. CADA has helped single mothers, attorneys, teachers, nurses, doctors, construction workers, musicians, you name it. Life is better on the other side of recovery. Call 222-8511 or www.cadanwla.org. You know, there are a lot of places that you can buy insurance, but there's only one, Jerry Anderson State Farm. Now, Jerry's here to help us manage the risk of everyday life, recover from the unexpected, and manage dreams. Jerry Anderson is at 4324 Parkway Drive in Bossier City. Auto insurance, home insurance, property, business insurance, life insurance. Call Jerry Anderson, 7 you shouldn't throw labels around like that. Yeah. Welcome back into 101.7 FM and
I'll never
710. No, we won't. Welcome back into Strategies for Living here on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Marriage and family therapist David McMillan and PLPC Carla McCormick. We're going to be speaking this evening. I actually interviewed Dr. Carl Alasko.
Of course you did. You've interviewed everybody.
Yeah, I guess I have. Been doing this a while. He's a psychotherapist for the past 2 decades out in Monterey, California. He writes for his paper out there, and he's written some books, one of which really got my attention by the name, the title, and it's called Emotional BS. But in the case of the title, it's spelled out, and it's the hidden plague that destroys relationship. And he says that this plague is destroying millions of human relationships. He says it's spreading, and he calls it emotional BS. It's a psychological and emotional disease wreaking havoc within all our relationships, from the most private to the most public. It operates without our knowledge or our consent, and it's toxic. Its toxic effects are expanding at an unprecedented level. He says, look at the casualties. Let's consider some things. A couple has less than one chance in 3 of having their marriage reach its 40th anniversary. 1 in 3. Half of all divorces are filed in the first 7 years of marriage. And more than 60% of couples report serious difficulties with emotional and sexual satisfaction. In the past decade, 7 times as many children require powerful medications just to stay in school. 1/3 of all children don't graduate from high school, and their emotional disorders are multiplying by a factor of 10. In adults, rates of depression, insomnia, obesity, and high blood pressure are soaring. Stress from pressures at work are creating a new and serious range of health, family, and parenting problems. And the news ain't getting any better. From the bedroom to the boardroom, more people are complaining about difficulty in their relationships. Yeah, there are islands of sanity, and many people do say that they're satisfied, but why are so many relationships, not? There are some that are fulfilling and satisfied and loving. And how do we know when our relationship is really successful? He quotes Daniel Goleman, who wrote the book Emotional Intelligence, and Goleman refers to a spreading emotional malaise and contends that our ignorance about how emotions work is leading to the erosion of our happiness and self-satisfaction, life satisfaction. He proposes that truly understanding our feelings is a way to improve our relationships, both individually and collectively. And so basically, Carla, he says that this is the way emotional BS works. So it's how emotional BS fills a relationship with this toxic energy and negative emotions. The 3 components I think we're all familiar with: denial, delusion, and blame. And Dr. Alasko calls these the toxic trio because they tend to work together. They tend to always work together, and they keep us from seeing and understanding what we're doing. Whenever they're in action, he says, our relationships cannot be satisfying. They can't be happy. They can't be fulfilling, because denial ignores or minimizes an essential fact or a responsibility. A delusion creates an alternate, more favorable reality when things fall apart. And then blame shifts the responsibility onto someone or something else. So the result is feelings of love, respect, trust diminish and eventually disappear altogether. As things fall apart, our desperation intensifies. We can't tell which direction the denial, delusion, and blame are coming from. Who's the perpetrator? Is it her, him, them? Am I using emotional BS on others? Worse, am I doing it to myself? What do you think?
Well, I definitely agree with his hypothesis or premise of emotional BS. I think that's part of what we talk about. I mean, we don't call it emotional BS.
No, but we talk about this in different labels all the time, don't we?
Almost every show.
Yeah.
So I definitely believe that. I'm not so sure that I buy his premise that the world is so much worse today and that it's full of more BS and the BS level is higher today than it's ever been.
You watched CNN lately, or Fox News, or listened to this radio station other than our time lately?
But I don't know that necessarily means that there's more of it. I think maybe we talk about it more, we look for it more, we're more aware of it.
Okay, so you're being, on your birthday, you're being an optimist. You're saying that okay, I get it. You're saying, we're maybe our antenna are up. And we're recognizing it more, seeing it more, so we're being more aware of it is in a sense a good thing.
Well, sure, because if we are more aware of it, then we can start to change it. I mean, I can't change anything that I'm not paying attention to and I'm not aware of.
Yeah.
So sure, so we, I mean, people can make a case that, yes, the world is worse today and blah, blah, blah. I just don't know that I buy that. I think our awareness is greater, and I love that. I love that I'm more aware of social injustice. I love that I'm more aware of, things that I can do better and that I can change in my own world, because to me, that's where change starts.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that I agree with you, though.
That's okay.
I do think that you are you've done the work. I mean, you've walked the walk, and therefore you talk the talk now, and you help other people do the work. I'm not so sure that I agree. I mean, I do agree that you are more aware.
Okay.
Definitely. I wonder, though, if you are projecting onto all the rest of us, and again, I mean, I think he makes a very compelling case by the bullet points that I mentioned earlier in terms of, well, he doesn't say this, but we've said it on the program. 50% of all marriages end in divorce. He said it a different way, only
Right.
a small percentage, a third of marriages will make it to their 40th anniversary. But, when you look at the statistics, 50% of all marriages end in divorce. What is it? 65% of second marriages end in divorce. 72% of third marriages end in divorce.
But those statistics aren't drastically different than they were 20 years ago, David.
Maybe not. But so to bring in your argument, then can we really say that we're all that much more aware? Because I mean, again, looking at those statistics, just those marriage statistics that I just threw out. Common sense says the more I do something, the better I get at it, and yet in the most important, when we stand up before a priest, a preacher, a rabbi, a justice of the peace, whoever, and give our vows, declare our undying love. Most people, I think, over 99%, over 98%, I don't know what, but they're very serious about what they're saying. They're very, you're very serious about what you're stating. You're stating it publicly in front of your family and your friends. And then I do that the second time, and I do that the third time, And, common sense says the more I do something, the better I get at it. And yet the statistics say, no, you're not getting any better at it. And so, okay, I hear you. Those numbers are solid over the last couple of decades. Okay, so
So we're not getting wetter.
We may not be getting worse, but we ain't getting better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the question should be: does it really matter if we're better or worse, or does it matter how we start to change? How do we get better?
Well, he would say that we have to recognize the toxic trio: denial, delusion, blame, because emotional BS is made up of these three interlocked together, and whenever they're in action, any relationship is going to be filled with a lot of toxic, negative energy, and the result is an increase in harmful emotions, anxiety, anger, fear, pain. And once that cycle begins, the relationship is either doomed to failure or its full level of potential satisfaction is certainly compromised. So, let's look at how they express themselves. Denial. It ignores, it minimizes, an essential fact or a responsibility. The delusion creates an alternative. It's a more favorable reality when when things begin to fall apart. And then blame shifts the responsibility onto someone else. And so denial says there is no problem, everything's okay, you're exaggerating, that issue doesn't matter, it's irrelevant, so I don't have to change anything.
Right.
Delusion says, let me tell you what's really true. Let me tell you let me tell you the fact. Don't believe what you see. Believe me. This imaginary world I've created, well, it's working for me. And blame says, well, you're the problem.
It's not me,
Yeah,
it's you.
I was forced to do it. I didn't have a choice. It just happened.
It's my past. It's my childhood.
Destiny willed it, so no one understands my true motives. Your accusations only make things worse, and there's the toxic trio working together. When we come back from this break, let's talk about because you ask a compelling question. Okay, well, once we identify it, well, how do we fix this? Well, you got to recognize it. You got to look for it. Look for it in the right places. We'll talk about that. And before the hour's over, we'll talk about how, at least Dr. Olasco says, we stop this emotional BS.
I think that's the whether it's worse or less or more or doesn't really matter. How do we stop it wherever it is?
Exactly. We will be back on the Carla birthday edition of Strategies for Living. Be right back.
Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood.
Okay, she's spunky on her birthday. I don't know what else to tell you. She's spunky on her birthday. And welcome back. Welcome back into 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into this edition of Strategies for Living. PLPC Carla McCormick and marriage and family therapist David McMillan. And we're talking about emotional BS today. And this is interesting because you and I are having we're having a conflict of sorts.
A debate.
A debate of sorts. And, okay, so one of the things that Alaska gets to is that, this denial and the delusion and the blame are what trap most of us and keep us in this emotional BS. What we need to get to is we need to get to a place of where we can really take care of ourselves, identify and take care of our core needs, and do constructive conflict, something that he calls constructive conflict. We'll get to that. Maybe you and I'll even illustrate it since we're having this this debate of sorts. But again, Carla, you're saying, okay, the world is better off than this guy says it is.
I'm just saying yes.
Yeah.
I guess that is what I'm saying.
And I'm saying I just don't see that. I don't see it. Okay, so he goes on. He says, here are a few common BS beliefs that have led to serious economic and social crises. So these are fairly, not brand new, but fairly recent. Americans don't really have to pay for the goods and services they receive, whether from the government or other sources. So, there's a credit crisis. I mean, Americans, not only nationally, what's the national debt? I don't know. That number is rising every
Tick, tick,
tick,
tick,
tick.
tick.
Yeah. And then there's also a credit crisis in many of our homes. Again, he would say that's part of the denial, delusion, and blame. Because the free market is infallible, whatever is created by the free market system must be beneficial to all people. We can endlessly continue consuming most of the world's finite resources without consequences to ourselves, and consequences to others are not our concern. Ideology, which is the firm belief in a point of view as absolute truth, is more important than any other consideration. This denies the essential fact that several points of view may be equally valid. Now, here's part of your and my debate playing out. I'm saying, hey, look up. Have you watched CNN lately? Have you listened to this radio station other than Strategies lately? We are so divided. I'm not sure that our world has been as divisive since, I don't know, the Civil War. I don't know. We're entrenched on one side or the other side, and we're name calling and we're pointing. I'm not saying you, because again, I know that you're sweeping in front of your house, but I'm just saying, I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that. And as I work with the couples that I work with, the individuals and couples that I work with on a week by week basis, I'm seeing a lot of what this guy's talking about. We're not taking care of ourselves.
And I don't know, and I'm obviously not an expert, and I'm not a scholar in political anything. But I've got to believe that when you talk about the McCarthy era or the 60s, when we had all of the racial and civil conflict, and then I would imagine that those people who lived through those times thought those times were worse or horrible. And I think we go through hard things, and we pick sides, and my side's right, and you're different, so you're bad. And I think every age and every time has that conflict. I think when you're living in it, and when it's your conflict and it's what you feel, then you somehow think it's worse than whatever came before.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and I would make the argument, you say that I see it, maybe the world through rose-colored glasses because that's what I want to see.
Well,
I would
I didn't say that exactly, but I was
Well,
implying it.
Okay, but that was what I heard.
Yeah.
And I would make the argument that you see the world with conflict, and because that's what you're dealing with every day, you know, and so you see the conflict and you see it, and maybe you're more aware of it and you notice it because that's how you see it.
Well, I don't want to see, I don't want to be Mr. Pessimistic. I want to try to see the reality.
That's what all pessimists say. They're realists.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know. I mean, again, maybe my own ego is involved here, but I do know that I'm aware of my operating system in as it plays out, and attempt to stop and step back from it and observe the thinking mechanism, the thought process. What am I telling myself? What am I actually seeing and hearing? If I'm listening to the radio, or I'm watching TV, or I'm listening to a couple either in my office or at the table next to me in a restaurant, going after it and fighting. What am I really hearing? What am I really seeing? And again, I think that what keeps us from being responsible for our own needs and working through conflict, he calls it constructively. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Is I think he's onto something, that we're it's almost like we're addicted to this. We're addicted to the delusion and the denial and the blame. You mentioned, I think you asked during break. I don't think you asked on air, but I think you asked on break, how is this different from something we were talking about last night with Gary, the victim's triangle?
Right.
Or the victim's trap. It's Cartman's triangle, the different names that it goes by. But it just basically says, that all around us, we identify as either a rescuer, as a victim, or and if there are rescuers and victims, then there's persecutors out there, and I mean, that is so prevalent in our world. I mean, how many of us feel like we're victims, and I don't know. I don't want to. And again, I'm not saying that. Of course, terrible things happen to us in the world, but victim is a choice. If yes, terrible things happen, and that's part of living in that's part of living in this world. That's just the reality of living in the world that we live in. But to carry the moniker, put the moniker of victim on, and carry it with me and make it my identity, make it my uniform, that's a choice. That's a choice that I do make. And no, again, I'm not, bad stuff happens, but it's a choice, of how long we carry it, how far we carry it, to what extent we carry it. And many of us, because of denial and delusion and blame, stay trapped in it. So to answer your question, I think that the thing that Gary was talking about last night there and this are intricately connected.
Yes, I agree, and I think that these conversations are good, because whether you believe the world is better or worse today kind of doesn't matter. What matters is, do you believe that you are better or worse, and that you can change?
And see, that's where I think you've come to. See, I think you've come to that place. You've come to that realization where you know I am not a victim and I can create my life and my world around me. The kingdom of God is within is another way to say
Right.
that, you know. And I can do that. I own that. But I argue that you're that and I want people to follow you. I mean, I'm all for that. At the same time, I think that if we're not realistic about the crisis itself, how deep and steep and large the crisis is, then we are putting on rose-colored glasses. I mean, you know, then that collectively, and I'm I'm all for if you want to wear rose-colored glasses. Hey, especially on your birthday.
Okay.
But I really don't know that you do. I mean, I think again, I think you've done the work. You've walked it. You've talked it. You teach it. You've done that. I'm just not sure that many of us, do that hard work, that we delay gratification and accept the responsibility, the personal responsibility, and we're honest, especially with ourselves, and try to live balanced lives, and try to clean in front of our street. And if we clean in front of the street in front of our house, the whole street gets cleaned if everybody does it. But I think that's rare.
Well, and I would challenge you, and I would say, I don't care if the world is better or worse, and and for me, that's an argument that doesn't really matter. What matters to me is, are the people I come in contact, do they believe that their lives can be better, and do they believe that the personal growth and the journey that I've been on, that they too can have it?
Well, I think you teach them that. I think you teach a lot of people in your life.
Well, I hope that I do.
I hope you do too. I think you do. I think you do. We I don't know what we're doing today. It's Carla's birthday. I know that. It's emotional BS, and it's Ruben's anniversary, and
rose-colored glasses.
and rose-colored glasses, and gosh, I'm confused. But
It's kind of fun.
That's kind of funny, and that's not new that I'm confused. We'll be back to confuse me more here on Strategies, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about
how do we fix this?
How do we fix this? Yeah, when we come back. how could she not see, folks? How could she not see that the world is... Have you looked at the world? It's pretty damn bad right now.
I don't know. We don't have any wars.
Really?
Well, not like we did before. I mean, there's no world wars.
No,
I
there's
mean,
no world war, but there's a lot of killing
when-
that's going on out there. There's a
Yeah.
lot of conflict, a lot of it in the name of God,
But that's always been.
Yeah, it has. It has.
I mean, we're trying to become a kinder, gentler nation.
I know that's what you want. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back into Strategies for Living here on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL as we celebrate Carla's birthday in a big way and Ruben's anniversary in a big way. I hope you're going to be kind and gentle to your lovely wife this evening.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Ruben is always kind.
Yes,
and
he is.
gentle.
Yes, he is.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes.
So whether we're better or worse, we're going to table that discussion.
Okay.
How do we break this cycle? How do we get out of that triangle of denial and bargaining and blame?
Okay, so Dr. Alasko would say that the way out is to discover your core needs, to discover and be willing to fulfill your core needs. He draws a, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He draws an analogy to those, and he says, our core needs are very individual. Your parents' needs might be very different from yours. While it's not possible to provide a comprehensive list, here are some of the major categories that fit into life's big picture, the major themes around which you would build your life. Which of these lifelong needs fit your personality? A quiet, non-competitive lifestyle with an easy pace. An on-the-edge lifestyle where you're always in the thick of things. A family with kids and constant activity. A contemplative life without the demands of offspring. Sister Carla. The kind of job, she told a great story during the break, folks. I got to get her to tell it one day. The kind of job that you never think about once you leave work. An entrepreneurial, high-risk environment with high demands and constant change. A career dedicated to the service of others, such as teaching or ministry. Lots of physical exercise in an outdoor environment, or the opposite. A sexual orientation that doesn't fit with your family's beliefs. A social life rich in conversation and intellectual stimulation, or a less challenging life with simple, everyday activities. And so he says you need to identify what are your core needs. You do that, he says, by being willing to engage some questions. What can I do to make my life fully satisfying? What behaviors can I change to satisfy my core needs? And which beliefs stop me from fulfilling them? And so, again, those are three simple questions, but they're rich in terms of the work. If you unpack them, especially that last one, what beliefs stop me from fulfilling? We talk all the time about our ego, our operating system being packed full, sometimes from very early, being programmed very, very early, and not even aware sometimes of some of those beliefs that are operating. And see, for me, that's what he's saying here, that a lot of this is kind of under our radar. It's running. Like I talk about all the time, our operating system is like DOS in a computer. We don't see it. It's we think Windows, if we got a PC with with Microsoft Windows on it, that Windows runs the show, because that's what we see, but it doesn't. DOS runs the show, and we never see that unless we know how to get down there and program it.
So my question to you is, if that is the tape that's running, so let's say the tape is you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you'll never be enough,
Right?
You'll never do those things because whatever the tape. Why is it that I can't hear that? What blocks me from being able to to hear that tape, if it's running in the background constantly, as we say, and that's been programmed in at a young age.
I'm going to take you right back to where we started: denial, delusion, blame.
Okay.
Okay, that's those. I think that's what Dr. Alasko, if he were here with us, would say. You know, that I think that's how he would answer your question. That those three things, that's the BS. That's the emotional BS, because it keeps us trapped. And we delude ourselves. We blame others, and we're in denial. I mean, we're even, again, he makes some points in the book. Our health, just pick on our health crisis, and we touched on it. The obesity problem, the problem with heart disease, the problem with diabetes. I mean, when I was a kid, I don't remember seeing many dialysis clinics. I mean, I know they were around, but now it seems like there's one on every corner.
That's because everybody who needed dialysis died.
Okay.
And we keep them alive today.
Okay. Maybe so. I don't know that for sure.
I don't either, but that's how I look at it.
Yeah, and that's fine. But I also know that the diagnosis that we've got that diabetes, as a for instance, and it's based on our lifestyle. It's based on and that's denial. We're in delusion and denial. We can't continue to put the crap into our system and the heavy laden sugar food and beverages that we put in and not expect natural consequences, i.e. diabetes, i.e. you get a diagnosis of diabetes, you don't manage it, and it gets worse, to the point where, okay, you got to have dialysis.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go back and let's talk about something. So let's say my internal dialogue is I'm the pretty one, my sister's the smart one.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So now, fast forward 30 years, and I don't think I can get that position at work because I'm not smart enough.
Okay.
So how does the denial and the bargaining come in there?
Well, number one, that if you're in denial and bargaining, you're not opening up to look at those beliefs that you may need to go down and reprogram. And if you're willing to get past that denial and say, okay, well, I can recognize this, I can see this, I can see that my belief today, I can trace it, I can see that it's back here, and I can see the programming. So I know, okay, there's at least one belief that I know that I need to work to reprogram in me. And
so I didn't not get the promotion because I'm not smart enough, but maybe I didn't get to work on time.
Maybe you didn't get to work on time.
So
maybe
that there's denial, and it's
maybe
not
you
my
didn't-
parents' fault,
Right.
because they call me the pretty one.
Right. It's your responsibility that you didn't get to work on time or hand your homework in or whatever that you're basing that,
Well, and
denial and delusion on.
because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give folks, I mean, you talk about big global things when you're talking about, dialysis and obesity. I'm trying to get people to think about these kinds
Right
of
in
things
front of
in
them.
terms of,
Yeah.
yes, exactly, what's right in front of me.
Yeah.
How am I using these excuses, these bargaining chips, so to speak, to stay in my unhappiness?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's basically what I'm doing. I'm
That's
finding a
yeah.
reason to stay there, because to get out would be too much work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, and that's so. Sometimes it's easier. That's the kind of the devil that we know. Give me the devil I know, and I'll just stay stuck in this.
Because
what
change is difficult.
it is, and I'll just stay stuck in what Alasko would call emotional BS.
Just spin.
Yeah. Where's the time gone?
I know.
We start fighting, and it just, time goes by.
We need to finish this conversation because I think this is important. Whether you call it emotional BS or whatever you call it, this being stuck is something that we have to really have to look at, and it's something we deal with on a daily basis
Agreed.
as therapists.
Agreed. We'll be right back. So, Ruben is just egging us on here. Welcome back into 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. PLPC Carla McCormick on her birthday, working on her birthday.
Whoop, whoop.
And marriage and family therapist David McMillan. Okay, so real quickly, this guy introduces guidelines of constructive conflict. First guideline. This is the only one that's divided into two parts. Before beginning the process, you've got to ask and receive permission, and you ask the other person if they're available to talk to you about a specific issue in the relationship, and then both parties must agree to follow all the guidelines, all 6 guidelines.
Are these like rules for fair fighting?
Yeah, they're kind of rules for fair fighting. The second guideline: ask directly for what you need using one sentence that can be answered with a yes, no, or maybe.
Will you shut up?
No.
Okay.
Third guideline: control your emotions throughout the process. Fourth guideline: take turns discussing the request. He calls it the 5 and 5. Without interruption, use only respectful words and body language and a moderate tone of voice. Decide how long you'll allow each party to speak about the request that's on the table. The usual time is 5 minutes, and that's why he calls it the 5 and 5. But you can agree on some other segment of time if that suits you best or suits you better. But, he says he encourages use a kitchen timer. Fifth guideline: what part of the other person's request can be accepted or fulfilled? And then the sixth guideline: close the discussion with a clear understanding about the resolution. I like those guidelines of constructive conflict, and if we all followed those, all 6 of them, including the first, get permission. Can we talk about this now? Maybe we'd have less emotional BS. I don't know.
It kind of sounds like the art of negotiation, because we're negotiating and we're trying to get to a win-win resolution, right?
That's right. If you want to know more about this, the book is Emotional BS, but it's spelled out. Carl Alasco is the author. Carla, thank you and happy birthday.
Thank you very much. This was fun.
Yeah, Ruben, happy anniversary.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
Folks, thank you for tuning in to Strategies for Living. We've been brought to you by CADA, Jerry Anderson, Learning RX, Highland Place, Rehab and Nursing, Jacob's Well, Resilient House. And if today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call to make, who would you call? What would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call, especially to Carla, and wish her happy birthday. We'll see you next time here on Strategies for Living.
Is 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. KEEL, Shreveport.